This is the Fierce Heart Alliance, featuring the Harmonic Virtues, a self-reflective practice to understand virtues based on the laws of the universe, ancient teachings, and channeled wisdom. We can apply these virtues to everyday life to fully participate in our personal evolution by cultivating resiliency, purpose, and harmony through self-awareness and self-stewardship. Hi, I'm Sophiamoon, and I've come here to heal myself and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum. So join me and my special guests as we share and learn how to love ourselves fiercely through self-care, explore the wisdom of the harmonic virtues, and grow our conscious community together. By listening, you are now a fierce heart too. Welcome to the Fierce Heart Alliance. Before we begin today's topic, I'd like to say thank you to our listeners. You're always welcome here. Thank you to our ancestors, spirit guides, and friends who are assisting us today. May these words be a force for good and timelessly infused with light and held in the frequency of rose quartz and spread healing and peace around the world. May it connect to both our consciousness and unconsciousness for the highest and most benevolent outcomes for all. If there's any words left unsaid, we trust in spirit to make things right and let it gently ease into our consciousness as necessary for understanding in our own time, in our own way. And so it is. Thank you. Hey, Fierce Hearts. Today's episode is our integration episode where we take a deeper dive into the virtue of transformation. The Harmonic Virtues combines ancient teachings and channeled wisdom for a modern interpretation of how these universal laws impact everyone, regardless of status, location, gender, or race. These lessons can impact our everyday life and relationships. They're aspects of us that are always evolving, ever shifting, and developing as we mature. And like a beautiful garden, they require some tending and some management to keep healthy and vibrant. The virtue of transformation is located on the inner petals of the metaphysical level of the harmonic virtues. This is the level of forces which are foundational elements of physical life and the building blocks of consciousness. Before we go any further, I'm going to share a channeling I received when I asked my guides about transformation, and which is also called the universal law of perpetual transmutation of energy. And quote, "Yes, hello. We are here to guide you in teaching about spiritual transformation and energetic transmutation. Yes, it is always changing, editing, shifting, morphing, and alchemizing. Whatever words work for you, it is that. The idea is that it does. The bad news is that energy can get stuck. It can get stagnant. Traditional Chinese medicine speaks about stagnation with its meridian system. We too need to allow flow of our channels in all aspects of life. Allowing change improves your situation, and for things to change for the better. It is when you hold on to the old things that change happens and changes for the negative. Learn to let go and be at peace with change. There are so many ways to shift, but it's all up to you and your choices. You control your energy and your thoughts. Thus, you control your transformation. We cannot control everything, and circumstances happen, such is the nature of life. Flow with what is. Direct and receive when the time calls. You will know it when you feel it. You will feel an expansion, a lightness in your body when you are in flow. You will have a heaviness and feel like you are weighed down when you are blocked. Yes, we love you. You are doing good work." End quote. As the channeling states, change happens and we're responsible for ourselves. It's not about what happens, it's about how we respond. And the virtue of transformation reminds us to take responsibility for our own thoughts and emotions. Last month, we learned about the virtue of vibration and how emotions can impact us and our energy that we put out and we feel from others. The virtue of transformation builds upon the virtue of vibration, as it is the movement and change of that energy. It is the root of many other virtues such as surrender, time, polarity, love, acceptance, rhythm, karma, wisdom, and more. The principles of transformation are 1. Change is inevitable. 2. Perpetual transmutation of energy. 3. Trust. 4. Is masculine versus feminine principles, directive and receptive versus action and rest. 5. The most dominant thought wins and manifests. 6. Timing and cycles. And 7, self-responsibility and self-stewardship. The first principle of transformation is change is inevitable. Energy is always changing, thus change is inevitable for us, and resistance is futile. Resisting change can perpetuate our suffering. The pain of loss is real, but getting stuck on it can add to our grief and keep us stuck in grief, preventing us from moving on. Obviously, that's much easier said than done. The second principle is perpetual transmutation of energy. This is stagnation and density versus flow and expansion. So energy is always changing and it's always renewing, and there's destruction and creation, and this is the cycle of what it does. It's about the movement and shifting of energy. Within that, there's either a flow of energy or a lack of flow that leads to how the change and evolution occurs. The key is to find your own way of flowing with the subtle energies of transformation and feeling what flow and density feels like for you. You could say that the emotions associated with it could be fear, which leads to stagnation and constriction and protection, whereas love is open and trusting and expanding and allowing. You can even feel it when you say the words constriction versus expansion. The constriction obviously feels tight and bound and inwardly, whereas expansion feels open and large and grandiose, and you can just play with those words or whatever words work for you, but play with how that feels for you. What is your sense of contraction and density versus what is your feeling of flow and freedom and liberation, and any kind of word that you want to use to help you describe and figure out what that means for you. That becomes your own way of working with the energy. And that way you can come back to it and say, oh, wow, I feel really dense. I feel really constricted. I feel, all of these tight, blocked sort of words. And then, okay, what do I want to do to shift into that? And is that block serving me? And so it really gives you a moment to process and evaluate what that feeling is going on. Maybe it's trying to teach you something. So going from there, okay, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And what do you want to feel? And then figure out what that word is for you. Is it expansion? Is it light? Is it freedom? Is it, any kind of open, allowing sort of word? What can you sit with to give you something different? Our third principle is about trust. It's that trusting that you will be guided for the right path for you, come what may. Superficially, if something bad happens, it's not necessarily what we wanted, and even if something bad happens, whatever we're going through at a deep level, maybe we needed to rely on other people, or maybe we needed to stand up for ourselves. There's usually an underlying deep down lesson that we're needing to learn regardless of what we're going through. And so we may not know why these things happen, and we probably don't want the lesson. We don't want to feel pain. But usually, regardless of what it is, there's usually a reason why it happened. This has a little bit of a dark goddess vibe to me, in that she lovingly guides you through your fears, and you might experience difficulty, but at the end, it's for your own good. You are transformed, and because of it. She asks you, are your fears really that scary? And, she might even stop you in your tracks because of an accident or a health issue. So you have nothing better to do than to sit with yourself. And she's intense, and she can feel overwhelming and intimidating, but she has your highest good in her heart to release you from your fears so that you can bring more love and expansion instead of clinging to those fears. Basically, the choice is yours. Also, trusting yourself that you'll figure things out, come what may. This is why negative self-talk is so poisonous. How can we expect to trust ourselves if we constantly berate ourselves for every little mistake? Trust is crucial, especially later when we get into the virtue of surrender. It's the key that lets us be vulnerable and surrender and allow to foster the change and transformation. About the trust that's needed in every situation is that it's not to be confused with taking responsibility for everything. There are things that happen to us that it is absolutely someone else's fault, and we're not supposed to take it on as we're responsible for every bad thing that happens to us. That's not what this is about. But it does say that even though there was something bad that happens, maybe we could learn something from it. So this is not to be confused with victim mentality. This is not where we, attack ourselves because, oh, well, this happened to me, or, I attracted this, I'm a horrible person. It's not that at all. It's, okay, this happened, and what can we do about it? And what can I learn from it so that hopefully I don't go through this again, or that I can learn about it for a bigger lesson. The fourth principle of transformation is masculine versus feminine principles. This is the directive versus receptive, action versus rest. Masculine energy is about creating, building, forcing, fighting, light, and pushing. Feminine energy is the opposite, where it's about receptivity, rest, slowing down, nurturing, darkness, and dreaming. More will be covered when we do the virtue of polarity, but this is the energetic component of that, in that we can shift it and we have the power to direct our energy, or we can receive. And it's this give and flow, this ebb and flow, this give and take that is the energetic element of that. This is also much later on, we're going to cover a virtue called correspondence, and this is the energetic virtue of that. So we're putting a pin in that. We'll come back later. The fifth principle of transformation is the most dominant thought wins and manifests. As mentioned before, the internal dialogue is super important. If we have a negative dialogue, eventually it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Look at what you're saying to yourself in the situation. Aim for a positive outlook and see how things change for the better. If we cling to our fears, we're setting that as our intention. And even though that's the last thing that we want, it can still manifest because that's what we're holding really tight to. We think that by holding onto our fears and worries is somehow going to protect us, when actually we need to focus on what we do want instead of what we don't want, if we're looking to change our experience and what we're manifesting for ourselves. Because as they say, what you insist persists. The sixth principle of transformation is timing and cycles, and we can look to nature to help guide us. You can look at a landscape and you can see it transform through the changing of seasons, only for it to come back around, repeating the cycle over and over. Growth happens, and conversely, so does decomposition and destruction through the natural changing of seasons and disasters to make room for renewal and growth. Change in nature can happen in minutes. It can also take years, centuries, or even a millennia. Transformation takes time. It takes as long as it takes. And for us, it might take us a lifetime to learn a lesson, or in a big picture kind of way, it might take several lifetimes for us to learn a particular lesson. And that's kind of out of our hands. But we also might revisit a lesson in this life a few times in a couple different ways. For example, you might have been raised by a narcissist, and then you come into contact with different narcissists to see what you've learned, or not. And ideally, you look at the situation with new perspective to see how far you've come. And nature also has its ability to adapt and be resilient and to adapt to what's happening. So, a tree sways in the wind. It has that flexibility. But if a tree breaks, then it becomes nutrients and shelter for animals and insects. The seventh principle of transformation is self-responsibility and self-stewardship. We have the power to shift our vibration. We can take responsibility for ourselves, our reactions, our intentions, and choose how we want our energy to flow. We can also turn a painful situation into a lesson to learn from. We can look at our biggest wounds and turn them into our biggest lessons or strengths. It's where you turn the ugliest piece of coal into the most beautiful diamond. This is spiritual alchemy. The other aspect of self-responsibility and self-stewardship is to own our own power. We so often give our power away in drama, trauma, and challenge. And I know for myself, I'll catch myself because I have my own triggers of where I tend to give it away. But as soon as I do realize it, I can call back my energy, and I shift from stress and confusion to strength and clarity. And when I give my power away, I feel lost at sea, floating in the middle of the ocean. And when I realize that I'm letting someone else control the situation, or I'm letting someone else dictate to me my perspective of the world, or I'm following their agenda that is not exactly in alignment with where I'm going or what I'm doing, I'm giving my power away. I take my power back by recognizing that regardless of what others do, I will be fine. I will be protected. When I finally get my energy back, It can be immediate or it can take some time. That lost in the ocean feeling starts to feel like I'm lifted up as if I have something to stand on. This is that energetic aspect of boundaries and the virtue of compassionate detachment, which is one of the last virtues, and we'll get into that at another time. It's basically, I love you, but I'm responsible for myself. Whatever happens with your path, your choices, I'm here to support you, but I'm going to review my options, and you're not the end all be all path, or this is not the end all be all path for me. So you can apply this to so many things like relationships and jobs and family, you name it. It can help give you a sense of stability amidst the chaos, and that you also have options, which gives you power. This leads us to our next segment about journal prompts and meditations. So as mentioned before, we talked about calling back your energy. Okay, great. How do you do that? You take your power back by asking yourself in the situation, who's leading the situation? Where is my power? Am I over investing in someone or something? Or what do I want in the situation? What is right for me? And is this the path I want to follow? Then you can also feel your energy. Is it close to your body or is it stretched out super far? How far do you want your energy, and what distance feels safe and comfortable? Does your energy feel expansive or dense? You can also imagine a lot of different things in ways to help pull your energy back. You can imagine a rope releasing from the other person and you're pulling it back with intentions that it's cleaned off with white or gold light by the time it reaches you. So it's all clean and none of their stuff gets on you either. Or sometimes you can see it as mist or fog or whatever resonates with you. Just make sure that that's cleaned off because you don't want their stuff in your energy. And this is especially good for those who are healthcare providers. With all the people that you care for, we need to clean ourselves as well. And we'll get into more of that when we talk about boundaries and energetic boundaries. The next suggestion is about how to get your energy flowing. As we mentioned before, does it feel dense? Does it feel blocked? Or does it feel expansive? Do you feel flow? And a way to help this happen, if you do feel blocked or dense, is to take a walk in nature. Do some Tai Chi, some Qigong. You can find some free videos on YouTube. You could do some yoga. Any exercise can actually help the energy start flowing as long as it's not too stressful or intimidating, which could block you even further. The next question is for you to assess your fears. What fears do you have? And to sit with it. And what is the worst thing that can happen? But then what is the best outcome that can happen as well? Let's say you get laid off. Okay, that's a very real fear. Well, what are some of the bad things that can happen? Okay, well, maybe you have a hard time paying bills. Now let's turn it around. What's the best outcome? Maybe you get a better paying job. Maybe something that's even more enjoyable. Maybe you start your own business. The goal is to open yourself up to the potential for options in the face of change. That's where it helps to decrease the anxiety. The next one is we're going to work with spiritual alchemy. And this might be a little intense for some that haven't really looked at these issues before, but you look at what are some of your biggest fears, your wounds, traumas, grief, and you take a look at it and what is the opposite, or maybe what are some of the underlying lessons that you could learn from this. And it might be hard, but that's where the teaching actually is, and it can be a pretty potent exercise. The last one that I'm going to share is a grounding meditation. And this is a really great way to release the old and to also bring in the new. And this is a really great way to get the energy to flow. So you sit in a chair or you can sit on the floor, whatever's comfortable for you. You want to have a little bit of a upright back, not too straight, not too curved over. You want to be relaxed and comfortable. And you want to think about a grounding cord wrapping around your waist and plunging down into the center of the earth. And this can be any kind of cord. This could be a chain. This could be a vine of ivy. This could be a laser beam, whatever sounds good to you. I've even imagined bringing up the most grounding stone possible energetically and holding it in my lap. And that just sinks me down so intensely. And the idea is that you're sending the energy from yourself down into the center of the earth for Pachamama and the Mother Earth to renew and recycle, to trust that she will use it how she sees fit and to transmute it for us, and that we don't have to do everything ourselves. So that's the potent part of that. And so releasing, letting go, that gives you that release point to surrender and let whatever is, as they say, whatever no longer serves us, let that go. And then while you're letting that go, imagine that there's a ray of sunlight above you, and that the sun is shining right down on you. It's bringing light into your body, and you're just purging. As you're letting go, you're bringing in, and you're letting go and you're bringing in, and the deeper down you're releasing, the further down and the more you're filled with light. And so you're just replacing any of the gunk that gets released. You're replacing it with light. And so you just sit with that. And this is a practice that would be good to do on a regular basis. And for me, when I do it, I feel like I'm in a barrel of water or something like that. I'm in a tank of water, and I'm feeling the water just slowly move and drain, and I can feel it drain out of my body. And once it finally gets down to my feet, I'm like, okay, I'm definitely cleaned out. So I hope that helps. There's lots of different ways you can go about this, but these are just a couple options. Play with it, see what comes up for you. In conclusion, as mentioned before, change and transformation is inevitable. And so it would be helpful for us to keep an open mind about change. We tend to skew towards the negative, and it would be helpful for us to keep open the opportunity for things to change and transform in a positive way. That concludes our episode for this week. Feel free to leave any comments you might have about your experience with transformation to keep the conversation going. I'd love to hear from you. So please like and subscribe. It helps this podcast more than you know. And feel free to follow the Fierce Heart Alliance on Facebook and Instagram, and also visit our website for weekly inspiration. Next week is our self-care episode with Jovita Kawa, where he shares his self-care medicine and his journey. Take care, Fierce Hearts. Till next time.